Welcome to the most listened to golf in the world, the Fairways of Life show, on air, online, and around the world, with the most candid interviews, unforgettable stories, taking you beyond the ropes. Here's your host, New York Times best-selling author, Matt Adams.
Welcome into the Fairways of Life show, folks. Pleasure to have your company from wherever around the globe that you are joining us. So, recent conversations, we have focused on this concept, call it, about how golf is being received at its highest competitive levels. And it's obvious that when you're talking about that you're going to look for mile markers. You're going to look for a method to measure at least engagement, if not more than that, apathy, passion, etc. So television ratings are a pretty interesting way to proceed. Take, for example, the following. This graphic that Dom and Andrew have put together shows us television ratings across a variety of different events in the game of golf, right? And this goes deep where it's comparing multiple years. We could compare these multiple years in a variety of different ways. Again, do you look at it and go, nah, the only thing that matters is what's going on Sunday? These are the Sunday ratings. And you would think that Sunday is going to be the pinnacle. But how much these are impacted by other factors comes into play as well. So then do you look at it from the standpoint of a season and say, well, on balance, on average, we are down by, say, 17%. Josh Carpenter covers golf for the Sports Business Journal. He's here to help us sort all of this out, these questions and more, and what they mean to the game of golf. Josh, it's a pleasure to see you once again. Thank you for your company. I know pretty much everybody already knows what the Sports Business Journal is, but just in case there's someone out there that's joining us that doesn't know, could we start with you explaining to us who the Sports Business Journal is?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. We cover the business of sports, right, at a high level, all major professional college sports, everything from new facilities, ticket sales, sponsorships, TV ratings in this case, right, that we're talking about today, kind of across the board. And so we're based here in Charlotte, North Carolina, but cover everything nationally, just as any other national sports publication would.
So in your role of covering golf, it's an interesting position to be in as a reporter for golf for the Sports Business Journal, then I would think. Because here we have a game of golf that at a, call it, participation level, the USGA, the R&A tends to call it a recreation level, they're booming. But golf at its highest competitive tiers may be on some uncertain land depending upon how you measure it. What's your take in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it this year kind of across the board, right? The PGA Tour's TV numbers were down. I think it was around 19% for the year. Liv's numbers to start the year, they had some okay numbers to start the year. At least we're talking linear TV, but they dropped throughout the year as we headed toward the end of the season. You know, Matt, there are a bunch of factors you could look at that could say are leading to some of these drops. It's, this fight in the professional game has been going on for, Liv launched around 3 years ago this time. So it's 3 years really of talking about this. Fans are tired of talking about it. They're tired of hearing about it. At the same time, so they're what are they doing? They're not watching as much. They're going out and they're playing that recreational game that we just discussed. I think that's kind of mixing in with the factor that around the time of COVID, you had more players getting out and playing anyway, right? So there's a mix of that COVID boom, players just playing more golf rather than watching it on television, and then you have kind of the fighting between the major pro tours and the men's game, at least, driving people away, and I think people are just kind of tired of it right now, and that's been seen a little bit on the TV numbers this year.
Josh, just so I understand those numbers a little bit. Golf participation, this is according to the National Golf Foundation. 26 million plus on course. Call it 27 million if you round up. 18.4 million off course. This is going to facilities where you can watch TV, grab a drink, hit some shots, get something to eat, whatever. So a total of 45 million. Based upon, and if you call that core, these are people that are holding a club in hand and hitting golf balls in one way, shape, or form. So the television audience on average, if you averaged it based upon the chart that I showed you there as we opened the show, 2.7 million on a Sunday, say, that's about 6% of the core active hold a golf club in some way, shape, or form at some point that actually will watch golf on television, 6%. If we go to what the National Golf Foundation calls the overall reach of the game, and these are based in the United States, of 123 million, then you can do the math. It's tiny. It's 1-2% in terms of people who will further engage, if you call it that, by watching it on television. I guess my question for you, Josh, in that regard is that normal to have that big a divide between what I'm calling the core of golf is defined differently by frequency of play, but I'm calling it people who have a club in hand at some point at roughly 45 million by the National Golf Foundation's numbers. Is it normal to have that tiny a number of those people that hit golf balls that care to watch the best in the world play the game?
I think it is. I mean, yes, the numbers are down on television this year, a fair amount over last year. But I think looking back over, and yes, you would certainly say that if you looked at the numbers from the peak Tiger era, in the early 2000s, they're down from there as well. But I still think just that ratio of people who are watching on TV to people who are actually going out and playing, it's always going to be pretty small looking back over the years. And then you see that increase of, things like Top Golf and just extracurricular activities around golf that, maybe not necessarily green grass golf, but people going out and holding a golf club and experiencing that, like you said. I still think it's a pretty small number compared to, people watching on TV compared to the people actually going out and holding a golf club and playing.
When you look back, let's, Don, pull me up the chart we have on a comparison to other sports for a second, please. When you look back, Josh, on other major sports, when those other major sports tried their fans, generally through strikes, we saw dramatic dips in ratings. But those ratings tended to come back to their average. I'm going to talk to you about what you just touched on in terms of the Tiger years. You could talk about it with the Michael Jordan years, et cetera, et cetera. Caitlin Clark with the WNBA now and with collegiate women's basketball prior. But to the average, it tends to come back to the average. When you look at the chart that we have up there right now, you can see that the NFL is fairly consistent over the last few years. The NBA, fairly consistent over the last few years. And then you see on the right, we just gave people some idea of what national broadcasts do, not the regional broadcasts by and large, the national broadcasts of these different sports and what kind of numbers that they generate. So you get a sense of, because when you look at golf against the NFL, of course, it's paltry, right? You're like, Jesus, there's nothing. But against these other sports, the numbers aren't that bad. So my question for you is, if we are seeing a dip, as you suggested, that might be based upon fatigue, do you see that coming back up to normalcy, or is this the new normal?
I could see it coming back to normalcy. And again, it depends on, I think there are a number of factors that could boost those numbers that could see them going up in the future, right? It's when does the professional game unite again? Is that in 3 years? Is it in 6 years? Is it in 10 years, right? Like, I don't think any of those are really off the table. So could the numbers, get a boost once that happens? It's a thing of looking at, something I wrote about last week. Nielsen, all these numbers you're looking at here are Nielsen rated, right? Nielsen is changing the way that it measures, changing its measurement, basically. It's adding more streaming in, right? So in the future, you could see more streaming added to those numbers. That's going to give them a natural boost. So a number of factors leading into this. I don't know that it's going to keep going down at the level that it went this year. a lot of factors leading to, let's just speak specifically to PGA Tour numbers. They lost more big players to Live, right? You had a lot of weather impacted events. Pebble Beach, no final round there. You had smaller name winners in those final rounds, which the numbers you're looking at earlier, those are all final round broadcasts, right? So a number of factors, kind of an anomaly this year, that probably are going to go back up a little bit. And so I think once that game is unified in the future, I think you'll probably see it, on a slight upward trajectory going back into the future.
When Jay Monahan at the Tour Championship suggested that while television ratings may be down, their consumption in these other areas that you're referencing was up. As an expert, Josh, where do you fall on that? Do you buy that, or is this something where you scratch your head and go, you know what, with percentages, you could pretty much tell whatever story you want?
There's a lot of spin that you could put on TV numbers and consumption numbers and this and that. Like you could spin that so many different ways. I think if you're looking at it from the tour's perspective, they've been talking in recent years about, hey, we want to grow our younger fan base. We want to get, in front of this, 18 to 35 crowd, which, most golf properties are doing that, right? I think the LPGA would say the same thing. I think Liv says the same thing. We want to get in front of that younger, more hip crowd. And so when Jay says in Atlanta, like, hey, our total consumption is up, that's looking across social, that's on streaming, that's digital, visitors to their website. And that's all good. I still think, Nielsen has primarily been the way that these things are measured, right? That's still what the ad buyers go by. So I think, as Nielsen changes the way they operate and add more streaming into their measurement, I think that's going to be important to look at going forward. I think, Nielsen, I talked to Nielsen for this story, and if you look at the tour's numbers in 2023 and 2024, adding this streaming element to it, their numbers in 2023 would have been 17% higher, and their numbers in 2024 would have been 20% higher than they actually were, than the numbers you're seeing right here. So I think that's something the tour is probably looking at and feeling pretty bullish about.
All right, so you just heard Josh Carpenter, who covers golf for the Sports Business Journal, say that the tour has reason to feel bullish about the way that their product is presented over the last couple of years through a medium that we're on right now, cameras, television, screens, of whatever variety that you consume it on. Interesting place to start, because it won't be that long from now when they're going to start talking about negotiations for the next, what they used to call television contract. I'm curious if it's going to be called the media contract going forward or something else. We'll find out from Josh what his perspective is on that and more as we continue on the Fairways of Life show. It is presented by the PGA Tour Superstore. They are the #1 golf retailer from coast to coast. If you need it for your golf game, you can find it inside of their big, beautiful stores. And the best part is that you are shopping with the pros.
I got ball fit in 2000, went on a little run. Then Bridgestone fit me again, and I went on another run. I just got fit again for the new Tour BX. The ball fitting's been helping me. Will it help you?
PGA Tour Superstore pros aren't born. They're made. Every January, hundreds of associates talk to the top manufacturers, learn about the latest clubs, test the newest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together, hit over 100,000 balls. All so they can get you the perfect fit.
I think when you're training for other sports, or why most people go to the gym is so that they can have muscles and be strong and be healthy. And a lot of the reason why they struggle to play golf is their body doesn't move properly for them to be able to hit a golf ball. And when you're training for golf, it's a little bit different because you're focused more on flexibility and mobility and being strong in motion. when you're able to kind of have a warm up and have a workout routine and kind of gradually build up to where you're training your body to move properly, yeah, you're going to get a lot of big dividends on the golf course.
Our journey began with a simple yet powerful vision to provide the world with the highest quality Virginia-type peanuts. The Hubbard Peanut Company, where quality and tradition meet to create an unforgettable experience. Visit hubspeanuts.com to explore our full range of products and place your order today.
Super easy to hit. Introducing the new PXG Black Ops irons, our first game improvement iron.
It's a larger face heel to toe.
It launches the ball high in the air and really far.
Much higher levels of forgiveness. You set that club down, it creates a lot of confidence. It's supported by this X-Core column material.
And that's where you get improved ball speed. If you're looking for a distance, forgiveness, and feel, Black Ops iron is going to be for you.
PXG, nobody makes golf clubs the way we do, period.
Stride by Zero Friction, the first of its kind personal caddy. Walk in comfort and style with Stride's remote and follow me technology. The Stride handles almost any terrain, and its 54-hole range will last all day. The lightweight design and removable front wheels makes it simple to handle. Plus, it easily fits golf carts. Pick up your Stride today at a local PGA Tour Superstore near you or at zerofriction.com/Stride. Stride, your personal caddy.
As we welcome you back to the Fairways of Life show, Josh Carpenter is joining us, golf reporter for the Sports Business Journal. So, Josh, you heard me mention just before we were going to break that we aren't that far away from the tour and media partners going back into negotiation for the rights moving forward. You mentioned the fact that the tour could have reason because of total consumption, if I'm phrasing that correctly, of 17 and 20% increase over the last couple of years, respectively. Would they still have reason to be, to use your word, bullish going into negotiation based on these numbers? And obviously, you're going to need a partner who has a myriad of different platforms to take advantage of it, right?
Yeah, and I think to clarify, I want to say I think they would be bullish that their numbers would increase from what they were this year based on these new Nielsen measurements, right? I don't think you're going to see, listen, we never know who's coming down the pipe when it comes to golf, right? There could be someone who we don't know exists right now who in 3 years could be a world-class player who could be driving television ratings. We just don't know that. So I don't know that they're going to return to the Tiger-level TV numbers that we saw, a decade ago. But I think that they could be bullish on what's to come. I would think, when they head toward these new media deals, this current contract expires in 2030. Like you said, it seems like a long way away, but I guarantee you Rick Anderson at the tour and his crew are already talking about what's next with these TV deals. And as you said, probably more apropos to call them media rights deals. You would have to think there'd be a bigger streaming element in these next set of deals that come up. Give fans an a la carte menu of they can choose what they want. They can watch more than what they have, current options to watch. I have to think that's sort of, if we talk about a global tour, right, which is what everyone's been discussing, these major television networks, your CBS, your NBC, they're not going to want to their main products on those networks at 3 a.m. when some of the, if you're in Australia, that's when a major final round is happening, right? If you're in Singapore, if you're across, the other side of the world, a lot of this live play is happening overnight in the U.S. when those broadcasters, they love that 3 to 6 window on Saturday and Sunday. So I don't think you'll see them going away from those 3 to 6 Saturday, Sunday windows as a whole. But I would think there would be a bigger streaming element as part of these next deals as you look at some of those potential options down the road.
Josh, you'd mentioned in the last segment a demographic group of 18 to 34. And I'm not trying to focus on that group necessarily at the exclusion of any others. I'm just saying you started to get into demographics. So let's talk about demographics for a second. Is golf still a sport where ultimately, regardless of the numbers, they can look at a prospective client, a sponsor, however you define it, in the eye and go, you know what? our numbers may flow and ebb like everybody's, but ultimately we're going to bring you the best audience in the world for your premium car or your financial services or anything else that people are trying to peddle.
Yeah, I think the tour should be looking in both of those areas, right? You certainly want that younger demographic, but then you look at that older demographic that a lot of people still see as golf's kind of core audience. Like they're the ones, like you mentioned, they're paying a lot for cars. They're the ones who are paying. We saw the outrage over the Ryder Cup ticket prices yesterday. They're the ones who are, a $750 ticket to the Ryder Cup is nothing. They're the ones buying hospitality at these events, and that's what allows these new title sponsorships on tour to cost so much, but they still have that value, right? So I think that's where you see that older demographic. Flip side of that, yes, they absolutely need that younger demographic. Good story from the Tour Championship. The tour did that Creator Classic down at Eastlake. I was talking with someone, I wasn't there, but in one of the hotels in downtown Atlanta where most of the players were staying, there was this group of kids milling around in the lobby there. And on one side of the lobby, there were 3 tour players. I think Adam Scott and Shane Lowry were 2 of the 3. And on the other side of the lobby, you had a few of the competitors in the Creator Classic, right? Some of the good guys and Bob Does Sports and all those guys. And these kids walked through the lobby and didn't even look at some of these tour players who were over on the other side of the lobby, and they just migrated straight to these content creators. So I think that's a good kind of a good antidote about the value of those young people and kind of the areas that they need to hit with that younger group.
What you just described, though, in fairness, to me, would seem like a problem. If you were one of the sports, at least major leagues, and you have multiple players, the stars of your sport, easy access, sign an autograph, take a selfie, whatever, and they gravitate away for you for these influencers. I'm trying to give it a comparison in my mind, Josh, to another sport. It's rare. In that case, we saw a 9-hole match with the influencers, fine. But a lot of times with the influencers, you'll see him hit shots. You'll see little contests. You'll see like Brian Brothers and stuff. You'll see him do trick shots, etc. So what do I compare that to another sport? Players playing horse in basketball, but they become huge celebrities in their own right and through their own distribution and to their full credit that they have created this. I guess my bottom line question is there a comparison to any other sport? And is this something that the sport of golf, if you were running one of their major leagues, would you look at and be a little bit concerned?
I think, well, it's hard to compare because golf is the one sport, right, that like you can't, your Joe fan can't go out, your content creator can't go out and play on an NFL football field, right? You can't go out and play it. Yes, basketball maybe would be a little bit more comparable. But so I think there may be a problem in the current time, right? If you've got kids who are not focused on your star players and they're going to these content creators, but I think there's opportunity in the future. You saw how well that Creator Classic did. You mix in some of that stuff, they mix with more tour players. They get the tour players more together with some of those creators. Gosh, you look at what Bryson DeChambeau has done on YouTube with his Break 50 series and how popular that has been with, I believe he's had some other pro players maybe with him. He obviously had Donald Trump on there, and you've seen the engagement that's driven. So I think best of both worlds is to kind of combine those and grow those together rather than having them separated out.
Let's talk about Bryson for a second because I'm still trying to read the clouds in this whole thing. Bryson's on YouTube. He has over 1.5 million subscribers currently. And for those that would criticize the way that the tour has approached their media rights, they'll say this is exactly why the likes of Bryson left, because now we can create this content which is bringing in, call it that coveted demographic you want to, but at the very least it's bringing millions and millions of views for what he's doing. So I guess on some level, do you look at it and go, if the tour tries to control media rights and tries to control the way and the pathways that their product is distributed, Are they not running the risk of being left behind as these new influencers, personalities, distribution, content from stars such as Bryson continue to take on a life of their own?
Yeah, I think it's something that I would definitely keep in mind. I mean, if you look at it, if Bryson had that PGA Tour logo, if he was still a member of the PGA Tour and he's creating all this stuff on YouTube and he's got 1.5 million subscribers, like you said,
Yeah.
think about the extra brand awareness that's going to be out there for the PGA Tour. I've always drawn the comparison. Look at the NBA and how, and I know, basketball and the Players Union is different from golf. It's different from the PGA Tour. But look at how popular NBA Twitter is and how many, if you're on Twitter or X on a given game night, there are highlights from fans, from media personalities all over. You can't escape it. And I just have always thought, like, the PGA Tour, with the way its player rights are structured with regards to media, it hampers it a little bit in that they lose some of that potential virality in terms of that PGA Tour brand being out there on social media a little bit more. So I've got to think that's part of the discussions that are being had in terms of those new media rights deals that come up in 2030. I know a lot would have to kind of change, with regard to the players' rights to make that happen. But I've got to think that those conversations are being had.
Is there reason, Josh, bottom line with this, is there reason to be concerned about the direction of television ratings at golf's highest tier?
I mean, I think so. You can't look at the numbers this year and say, certainly there are some positives that you could look at with the new Nielsen measurement, with the streaming and all that. But I still think I always go back to television and broadcast TV is how most people consume things, right? You still see the NFL numbers every Tuesday, and some streaming's been being added into some of those. If you look at talking about Nielsen specifically and the new measurement, the Thursday night games on Amazon, those primarily come out with a Nielsen only rating on day, and then on Monday they add that new Nielsen measurement in to add a little bit of streaming. But broadcast TV is still what most people go by. The WNBA ratings that we've seen go through the roof this year, still everyone's talking about those in a broadcast TV perspective. So I think the tour has got to think about some innovations to go about, and they're doing some of that with some of these fall broadcasts. But yeah, I would be concerned probably. Like I said, could be some growth there in the short term with the new Nielsen stuff, but I still think broadcast TV is what people go back to watching.
You mentioned a moment ago, which I thought was interesting, the pricing of the Ryder Cup tickets that is causing a firestorm. I mean, and we're talking about the passion that people have towards this. Here's what Kevin wrote. He says, I'd like to go on record now and say that if Europe wins the Ryder Cup at Bethpage because the crowds were turned into a polite snooze fest like LACC by the insane ticket prices, it's going down as a massive own goal. These prices are, you're talking about Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, $749.51, and that's what you were referencing. Okay, you're the golf reporter for the Sports Business Journal. What is the business that is behind all this? What's going on? And is this just horrific timing for this announcement to be coming out?
Yeah, look, my standpoint on this is like, and a lot of people have this similar view, like the Ryder Cup. I haven't been to a Ryder Cup in person. I've been to a President's Cup in person. It's a tough viewing experience in person. Would I pay $750 to go to a Ryder Cup, to a President's Cup? Probably not. I think it would be a better product on TV. That being said, and I said this yesterday, I don't think the PGA of America would set these prices these ways if they didn't think they could sell these tickets. I think this Ryder Cup specifically at Bethpage Black, Matt, we've been talking about this Ryder Cup for how long now? 6-8 years. This is being billed as one of the top golf events of the decade. Bigger than majors, bigger than, some of your other, signature events on the PGA Tour, one of the biggest events of the decade. It's in, which market is it in? It's in New York. It's one of the biggest markets in this country. And so my point yesterday was, yes, these prices are outrageous. I would not pay these prices to go to this event. But with the way it's being, the anticipation that's being drummed up around this event, would a New Yorker pay $750 to go to the World Series, to an NBA Finals game at MSG? And I think they would. And so I don't think they'll have a problem selling these tickets for these prices, despite them being what they are.
Shane Ryan, I find to be a pretty balanced journalist, and his post yesterday at X also grabbed my eye. He says, "I'm just going to say, come what may. If I were a player, I would flat out refuse to play in the Ryder Cup without fair compensation, and I would be fully willing to tolerate the propaganda thrown against me. This has always been my position, but these prices cemented. In terms of the prices themselves, I do wish that there was some law in place, not just for the Ryder Cup, but for everything up to a Taylor Swift concert, to cap prices at some reasonable limit. But under current rules, I can't begrudge the PGA of America for trying to get what they can, I guess. I would laugh if I were asked to pay for these prices for a donation from my charity. Like, are you kidding me? Everyone is there for the players. What is this? The NCAAs? These are professional. There is an insane irony for professional golfers of all people that they're athletes who are sort of quietly bullied by calls of patriotism and history into playing a premier money-making event for free. So, Josh, I guess my question for you here, and it goes down to much of what we've talked about today, but this is the epitome of it. Now, bear in mind, this is the PGA of America. We've talked about the PGA Tour. We've talked about LIV. We've noted some of the major, just so we have distinctions on all this. I'm not trying to pile any of this on one person, but I will put them all under this one category of golf for a second, if you would allow. Is golf really bad at reading the room?
It seems to be sometimes, right? Yeah, look, it's not, you asked earlier about, and you asked about timing earlier, and is this a bad time to be asking about? Like, yes, I think on top of the fighting in the men's pro game that, like, we've been talking about, that we've had going on for 3 years now, it's all about money, right? All you hear is money, money, money. And now these prices for one of your most pure events, right? The Ryder Cup is golf in its purest form. The players aren't there, playing for money, like you mentioned, and then you have it come out that it's $750 for a ticket. Yeah, sometimes it is. It seems like sometimes golf as a whole cannot get out of its own way, and I don't know, Matt. Does it end anytime soon? Do we see more stuff down the road where they're going to still be getting in their own way?
Yeah, and that's the big question. That probably would be a perfect way to end this, where do we see it going down the road? Because you mentioned, you talked about a time frame, a few years, 3 years, 6 years, 10 years. Will we see the game come together at the top? If, in fact, these ratings are being impacted by a fatigue factor, an exhaustion factor from the fans, that time frame that you were talking about, interestingly enough, will take us right in through and beyond the negotiation process of the next television rights deal, which is going to be, I think, fascinating with all of this at a certain point, because of the rights that all the sports are getting across the board. At some point, you have to sit back and go, how much is, I'm not so much saying how much is enough in a capitalistic society, but from the standpoint of how much can everyone afford to play? Where is this money all going to come from? Pay the players, pay the rights fees. It's kind of wild. So I'm going to cast the net a little bit wider than where you just left it, Josh, and say, your job is to chronicle all this. Your expertise happens to be in sport, but the Sports Business Journal is covering this stuff every single day. Where do you guys see all of this going 5 years, 10 years down the road?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, we've talked about 3 years since LIV launched, and it feels like an eternity, right? I was talking to someone similarly at the Tour Championship, and they said, 3 years right now seems like a really long time. And if this isn't figured out in another 3 years, that's 6 years. That still feels like a really long time. In the grand scheme of things, though, if we figure out the future of professional golf, of men's professional golf for the next, let's say, 50 to 75 years, and how it's going to be structured, then 3 to 5 years really isn't that long, right? And so I still think there's a long way to go in terms of the negotiations between PIF and the PGA Tour in terms of a deal. Even if they do agree to do a deal, it's going to take so long for the Department of Justice to approve this and get it across the line. So, I mean, I think, you've heard 2026, 2027. Like, I would think 2026 would be extremely optimistic to see everything kind of come together. Because you look at, you have new LIV players coming on board who are signing contracts with that league to play for multiple years, right? It's not so easy to just break a contract. With the people that LIV has been hiring, like, that league is not going away. You hear sometimes people say, "Oh, it's just going to go belly up next year." With the amount of money they've put into it, with the level of executives that they've hired to run that league, I don't see it going away anytime soon. And so I think they've got to figure out how to bring everyone back together. But I still think that's a few years off.
If golf was at its highest competitive levels, if golf was a publicly traded stock, is Josh Carpenter buying or selling?
Can I say hold?
Josh Carpenter is the golf reporter for the Sports Business Journal. Always fascinating to catch up with you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot, Matt. We appreciate it.
Okay, folks, we'll be back with more of the Fairways of Life show right after this. And when we come back, I'm going to touch base with Dom because I want to find out what you guys are saying about all these things that we have been discussing today. Stay with us.
In Ireland, golf is more than just a game. Come and experience our world-famous links courses and our world-famous parkland courses, all set alongside world-famous scenery. And visit our world-famous historic sites. And while you're here, enjoy our world-famous hospitality. Fill your heart with Ireland at ireland.com/golf.
Ben Hogan Golf Equipment is back. Established in 1953, we serve golfers who demand excellence of their equipment. Designed by the game's best engineers, forged in the world's best foundries, and built to order in the USA. Don't settle for off-the-rack disappointment. Elevate your game with custom clubs at direct-to-consumer pricing. Exclusively at benhogangolf.com. That's benhogangolf.com.
The best feeling iron I've ever hit. Introducing the new Gen 7 irons, the greatest leap forward in irons technology, in performance, in PXG history. Our new quantum core material explodes off the face. Are you kidding me? The Gen 7 irons deliver groundbreaking new levels of forgiveness, speed, distance, and feel. That's what I'm talking about right there. Look at that trajectory. Just phenomenal. Gen 7. It doesn't get any better.
PXG, nobody makes golf clubs the way we do, period.
Baseball? Nah. Football? Done it. I think I'm going to go after PGA Tour.
Playing on the PGA Tour is not easy. But you know what is easy? Getting the 524 series from Tour Edge.
Getting linebackers and home runs used to be easy.
Out here, you're going to need all the easy you can get. Introducing the 524 series from Tour Edge. The easiest clubs you'll ever hit. Even the best players in the world can use a little easy.
I like the sound of that. Look out, PGA Tour.
Pound for pound, nothing comes close.
What would your ultimate golf experience be like? Just you and a friend? Or would you round up some buddies for a foursome? Just one day? Or an entire week? There's a good chance your ultimate golf experience could be Michigan's magnificent 10. 10 incredible courses set among 3 remarkable resorts. See for yourself. Book your ultimate golf experience today.
Our journey began with a simple yet powerful vision to provide the world with the highest quality Virginia-type peanuts. The Hubbard Peanut Company, where quality and tradition meet to create an unforgettable experience. Visit hubspeanuts.com to explore our full range of products and place your order today.
PGA Tour Superstore pros aren't born. They're made. Every January, hundreds of associates talk to the top manufacturers, learn about the latest clubs, test the newest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together hit over 100,000 balls, all so they can get you the perfect fit.
And welcome back to the Fairways of Life show. This Tuesday, heading out tomorrow morning. Got some cleanup to do in the Tampa area. Heading up to the Northeast, flying into New York this coming weekend, and I'll be up at NBC Sports for Golf Channel for the next couple of weeks. And we will be originating shows from up there as well. So, Dom, I'm dying to know what people are thinking after listening to an expert, after listening to Josh Carpenter from the Sports Business Journal talking about television ratings. I don't even quite know how to summarize what I heard. I'd be curious what your impressions were, kind of sitting on the sidelines listening to what he had to say.
First of all, I love having experts on this program, just in general. That's why I love the fact that we spend so much time talking to professional golfers, both men and women, old and young. There's nothing that is the equivalent of that perspective. And Josh's perspective is unique and knowledgeable, and there's a tremendous amount of weight and experience behind what he has to say. I thought my takeaway from him talking, if I was going to make it a sentence, it's hard for me to make anything one sentence.
That's true.
If I was going to make it one sentence, I would say some people seem to think that golf's going to be okay, but Josh is not convinced. And that's interesting considering his background, that he's not convinced things are moving in the right direction. That's interesting. The question of the day,
kept coming back to your point. He kept coming back to basically what I was trying to figure out is, because you could tell any story you want with numbers, he's coming back to going, yeah, my words, not his. The gold standard is still television ratings, though. And television ratings are down, bottom line.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying. That's interesting. I would say the overall view is a negative one. Maybe it's only 60-40, but it's a negative one. So the question is, for all of you, is golf in trouble on TV? And 71%, perhaps influenced by Josh, are saying, yeah, it's in trouble. We got issues. There are comments coming in.
Yes, what are they?
I will read a few of them.
Okay.
I think there's a lot to discuss here, and we don't have a ton of time. We can talk about this, especially as the season comes to an end and we enter into the holiday season. It gives us the opportunity to talk a little bit more about this kind of stuff, ad nauseum over a period of hours and shows. That being said, Cal writes, America is not the center of the universe. There are many more golfers and golf fans and followers outside of America than what is in America. Unlike the NFL, golf is not an American sport. It is a world sport. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt. That's an interesting comment. But United States golf television ratings are still the driving force, are they not?
Well, to his point, when the United States, the market for golf in the United States is the largest golf market in the world. Right? The next two surprise people because they're both in Asia, right? In Japan and South Korea. But the largest golf market in the world is the USA. So generally, any business wants to, if they can, dominate or at least do well in the primary market for that product or service of which they're selling. But when you take a look at golf from a global basis, call it golf fracking if you want to, where you pull together the bits and pieces from all of the rest of the world, it's a number that's larger than inside the United States. So there is truth to what he's saying there as well. It's just broken up in all these little different pieces by region or by country. So there's merits on both sides of a discussion where, for example, someone yesterday in your comments was talking about, they were talking about Liv's growth objectives and saying, no, they're setting up this global tour and they're trying to take advantage of the popularity of golf on a global basis. Smart play. If you're going to go up against the primary product being the PGA Tour in the United States at its highest competitive levels, then where do you go to build your product? take it outside of their primary marketplace. Don't go out completely. Leave a little taste of it, but go out and try to dominate everywhere that they are not. So I think it's a smart business plan from that perspective. But to the point of, I haven't checked this in a while, but the last time I checked it, golf as a global sport, global, is bigger than the NFL, which is going to shock a lot of people to hear that golf is one of the top 10 sports in the entire globe once you take it outside of the U.S.-centric. So it depends on how you're measuring it, but still, when you get right down to it, this comes down to kind of the ratings that Josh was talking about. Measuring it against the standard that is the United States, it is the largest golf market in the world, and as a result, that's a very, very formidable business platform.
I mean, I can keep reading stuff if you want me to, Matt. I mean,
I'd like to know
I guess I'll read
I'd like
one
to know
more.
what people are saying.
So John writes, what Matt's talking about is what Liv is trying to tackle. Bryson doing his break 50 and all the Liv teams having their own Instagram accounts so people can follow them. These things are great for the game. Excuse me. And Cal writes, YouTube and Liv are attracting the younger viewers and followers, not the boring PGA. My only comment to that is, maybe you disagree, Matt, is that all the numbers everybody is talking about on YouTube, on Liv, and on the PGA Tour are not as high as everybody thinks. No. They're just not. Like we said, Bryson DeChambeau has 1.5 million YouTube followers. Every video he has doesn't have 1.5 million views. And even if they did, we just talked about the average regular PGA Tour event for 40 minutes being basically 2.5 million people, which is 1 million people more than that. And, you know, if you go and look at his latest video, which I just did, it's got like 700,000 or 800,000 views. Not that that's nothing, yeah. But we can't say that all of a sudden they're breaking ground and it's totally different. And it's not. It's still 1/3 or 1/4 of what the PGA Tour is doing. And nobody wants to talk about it because everyone says that Liv is this new groundbreaking thing that everybody wanted. That's what was missing. Well, their ratings are awful. Their television ratings in the United States are awful. So if that was true, wouldn't people be flocking to that? I mean, their last event, I think, had 89,000 people watching it in the United States. So I'm not saying these things are necessarily bad. I'm just saying that everybody's numbers are like, everybody. All the groups. But it's nice, right? It's nice to have some young people watching. That's good. It's not bad. But it's not, they're not getting 10 million people to do anything.
Well, again, he talked about he called it a coveted demographic of 18 to 34 because when you have 18 to 34, you start to get on the tail end of that demographic. You start to get to disposable income that might be able to buy your product, but you're also what they're trying to do is grab an audience that will grow into the point where they can have brand loyalty and pay for these certain things. When you talk about a demographic breakdown, all the golf groups, if you look at the two primary tours in the United States, being the PGA Tour and Liv, they have that demographic. It's just a smaller percentage than what they want. And Liv has a higher percentage of that demographic as compared to the entirety of their audience, measuring it against a U.S. television audience as a base. Again, you could do it on a global basis and look at all other types of measures. That's the nature of these numbers. But today, because you're trying to do a comparative base, they're looking at it based upon U.S. numbers. And Liv's U.S. viewing numbers are not good. The PGA Tours are down, as we just heard, kind of creeping towards 20%. That's also not good for them, even though their gross numbers are averaging, 2.5 million or whatever you just said. So from that standpoint, the consumption of golf on television would be a concern to me that it is down by that higher percentage. I don't care what business you're in. If someone says year over year you're doing 15 to 20% less volume than what you did the year before, anybody that knows anything about business would say, yeah, that's not the best scenario. I've always said the same thing about this. The best restaurant in town is not going to survive simply because they're the best restaurant in town. They have the best food. The ones that make it are the ones that have the finances, the backing behind them in order to make it through the developmental stages. That's when you're in the real valleys. When you see businesses go out and you go, geez, what happened? I love that place. It had a nice crowd. The food was wonderful. I loved the owners. The service was great. They couldn't make it through the early times of paying rent and paying payroll and paying insurance and paying for the food elements that you need in order to make these wonderful dishes, etc. Well, it's no different for any other business, but when they talk about LIV, what a lot of people forget, if someone's ardently against LIV, right, and say, like Josh used the phrase of people saying, well, they're going to fold. How? Because the difference is they're that restaurant in town that has the money to make it through the low times. So regardless of where LIV's ratings are right now, I think you have to take a long view on where golf is going. And again, I say this to reiterate. When you take a long view, now your long view is going to push right into the negotiation for and into the new television rights deals. So these numbers do have an impact. You could bring in other things and go, well, we've got streaming, we've got, all this consumption coming from different areas, which is also generally a younger demographic, mind you. But for the big dollars, are you paying for the streaming in the digital, or are you paying for primary television? Today, right now, here, it's still being paid for by primary television, because even when you look at the so-called streaming, call it Amazon or whoever it is, the way that, or what's YouTube TV, because someone was talking about YouTube, right? The way that it's set up right now is that the way you link to it, whether you have Fire TV or whatever you do, once you get on there, it's a traditional television experience, right? So it's something different. Josh had an interesting perspective when we were talking about the influencers in the game of golf. It's because the game of golf gives you this unique ability that you can compete on, play on, produce content on the same stages that the game of golf could be played at its highest tiers. What other sport allows you the opportunity to do that? And that's all true. That's all true. But I still don't think that whole genre would exist in the game of golf unless they were providing some measure of content that people found to be very entertaining. It's not just about the kids. I get it that for a lot of them they are 35 and under. I get it. But the success that they're having shows that something is missing at the game's top tier. Yes, I think it is because sand is being thrown from one corner of the sandbox to the other. I get that. And I get that people are tired of that. But I think part of it is also that for so long, golf has tried to control the message. Golf has tried to control the image. Golf has tried to control whatever they can control. And the idea of it was how you perceive the game, how you perceive its participants, how you perceive its ecosystem is based upon the message that we, the people in power, want to send to you. So you take what we give you, and that's it. And what we're seeing right now in the game of golf and beyond is fracturing. We're seeing that the picture that we were presented with for all these years is not necessarily reality, even though reality we're finding in today's society is very much subject to how you choose to interpret it. So things are changing, and if I have a fear for the game of golf, it's that the game of golf needs to have very forward-thinking people to realize that trying to put together a structure that cements the way that it's always been is probably going to be a structure that can get washed away. Thank you so much for your company, folks. It's always a pleasure. And we're looking forward to being with you next time. Probably for me, the next time we share company, I will be back up north. Until then, be well and goodbye for now.